Hi, I'm Beth, and today I'm going to show you how to make a cute doll from a panel. And this one is Northcott Girls of the World panel. And each panel that you purchase comes with 2 dolls. And so we'll show you how to do it. So first thing we want to do is cut out all the pieces. And note that the instructions are on the panel. And we'll want to cut around the outside of the doll shape. Don't cut on the dotted line, that's going to be our sewing line. With the straight lines, it's going to be easier to use your rotary cutter and a lot faster, but when you're cutting with scissors around the curved portions, try to keep the panel as close to the table as possible and move your scissors around and not the panel as much. This will help avoid stretching that out too much. So we've cut out the front and back of the doll, and you don't have to be too exact because you are sewing on that dotted line, so it's pretty forgiving. So you can put those right sides together and then just put a few pins in there. Just make sure you get that really nice and lined up. And then we'll start sewing and leave an opening for turning, probably along the side. And then be sure to backstitch at the start of your opening. That's going to be a point that's really stressed when you're turning it around, and so you want that to be very secure. It's a good idea to sew in the needle down position. That way when you're turning and pivoting, your doll won't move around underneath your needle. And on the curves, it's much better to gradually turn, pivot a lot, so that you don't have any sharp movements. So we'll sew around the whole doll on the dashed line, and I would say err a little bit on the inside of the dashed line. Otherwise, when you turn it, you might see those dashes on the outside of your doll. We did shorten our stitch length just a little bit. This helps hold the doll together just a little bit more securely. When you come to a corner like the neck or the arms, it's best to make a gradual curve rather than a really hard pivot. When you get all the way back around, don't forget to leave your opening for turning and add a back stitch. Once you've sewn all the way around, just take a double check on the seams and make sure that your stitching is all within those dashed lines. And if not, you can go back over it and just kind of ease that stitching in. Add just a little bit more stitching on the inside of the dashed line. To reduce bulk along the curves and in the points and corners, we'll want to clip some of that fabric out. Just make sure not to get that seam. To save yourself some time when you're clipping those curves, you can use a pinking shears. So now we will turn her right side out, and you'll want to have a couple tools with you, maybe a point turner. I've got an orange stick, and I have the stick that came with my wonderful stuffing. So any of those will help you when you're trying to turn out the arms and legs, especially, are a little skinny. Now we've turned her right side out, and given her a little pressing. Now we're going to stuff, and we don't want to use like a big clump. Take smaller pieces, kind of compact them a little bit, and then put them in the opening. And then again, here's where you'll want to use your little tools to stuff those down into the smaller spaces. And you do want to get a good amount in here so that she's nice and stuffed. And just continue adding your filling. So we're finished stuffing, and you can fold the seam inside on the opening, and I've put some pins in here to hold that closed. And then we're using a black thread to match her pants, and we'll do a ladder stitch to close that up. Now we'll make the skirt. The instructions call for making a casing for the elastic, but we have a fun technique that'll save you a little time. So we're using this Coats EloFlex thread, and this is a stretchable thread. So we're going to use this to sew on our elastic. So we have already turned the top and bottom under about 1/4 of an inch, and the bottom part we already top stitched. So now we're going to take this over to the machine, and we've got our 8 inches of 1/4 inch elastic. And we've got the black EloFlex thread threaded on the machine so that blends in with the front of our skirt. So what we're going to do is line up this elastic with the top of the skirt, and we're just using a straight stitch. And as we stitch, we're just going to stretch this to fit along the top, and that will gather the skirt up. So now we'll fit this to our doll, and you'll just want a little bit, about 1/2 inch in the back overlapping, and then sew that seam together. And you'll probably have a little bit of excess. We do on ours. So once you've fitted your skirt, put right sides together, and I put a pin in there just so I know where I'm going to sew and to hold it together. And then we'll sew down the short sides to close our skirt. So we've sewn our skirt and turned it right side out. So now we can put it on our doll. If you'd like a little more bendability at the joints, you can top stitch with a matching thread at the joint positions just to make her a little more flexible. Isn't that such a cute project? So fun to sew, and you can do this in an afternoon. I think it'd be a really fun project to do with your kids or grandkids.